Thank you, Sue, and hi, everybody. I'm Ellen. I work with Hannah and Craig on the senior team. So far you've heard a bit about our care model and what makes it unique. And you might be wondering how we put all of this into practice. Another really important aspect of our model that you've just heard about is that we are entirely volunteer-led. So the holiday is organised and delivered by volunteers every year. And it's worth saying a bit about this because I think it is a really special feature. So I'm going to tell you a bit about the people behind the team because we simply couldn't do some of the brilliant things that you've just heard about without them. Okay, so this is what our volunteer model looks like. We have about 50 volunteers involved with the holiday across three main volunteer roles. So that's helpers, group leaders, and senior team members. Helpers are really at the core of the holiday, so they provide the one-to-one support for holiday makers. They're then supervised by group leaders, so a group leader will look after a small team of helpers. And finally, the senior team support both the helpers and the group leaders and provide some more sort of specialist support when it's needed. They also provide a lot of the infrastructure and planning around the holiday. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail on all of these. I really want to emphasize the helpers that we have on the holiday because I think what makes SuperTroop different is both we have a focus on young people in two aspects, the holiday makers, but also the young people volunteers who are partnered one-to-one with holiday makers. So what are helpers? Helpers are young peoples at our school that hosts the holiday. They're aged between 17 and 19 years old. And their role on the holiday is to provide one-to-one support to the kids who come on the week. And they provide support across a whole range of areas. So that might be with personal care, it might be with meal times, bedtime routine, getting up on a morning, getting dressed, and helping support holiday makers to engage with the activities that we have planned on the timetable. They undertake a lot of training in advance of coming on the holiday, so we upskill them in certain areas. So a lot of what Hannah's talked about in terms of personalised care and being bespoke to the individual. We do a lot of best practice training around care, around communication, so how they might need to adapt their communication styles on the week. We talk about best practice in terms of being a leader and demonstrating really good care. We also do a lot of work with them around tips and tricks on low arousal approaches and talking about scenarios that they might experience on the week, what might be stressful in the environments, how we can go about our activities in a safe and responsible way. So we provide them with as much training as we can. And a large part of the training is also getting them up to speed with the kids that are coming on the week. So Hannah mentioned all of the care planning that we undertake, all of the information that we gather from parents and family members. We sort of bring all that information together and we create a bit of a manual or a Bible about the holiday makers, and we do that in a really holiday friendly way, but the purpose of that booklet is so that helpers can sort of get to grips with some of the information that they need to put them in a really good place to provide the care. So that guidance might be things like the holiday makers specific medical needs. It might be things like they're going to be wearing a hearing aid and we really need to look after that on the week. But it'll also include things like the child's favourite song or favourite snack or what they like to do if they're having a particularly hard time. And the real nice thing about that is that helpers are preparing for the holiday well in advance, to the point where they might be downloading a playlist of some of the kids' most favorite songs, so that as soon as they're meeting the child on the Monday morning, they're sort of welcoming them with things that they're already familiar with. So that might be their favorite song, their favorite snack, and it helps just smooth that transition and create a really good start to the week. Helpers also bring fun and friendship, and that's really key. So, as Craig mentioned, this is a peer relationship. Holidaymakers get to experience the activities partnered with the helper, and this relationship is really key. What we see is that it's building trust throughout the week, and it's that trust that means that we can go on and try new things throughout the week. We can push ourselves to do maybe quite an ambitious activity because we've got that really strong relationship between the helpers and the holidaymakers. And the helpers are all supported by more senior volunteers, and that creates a really nice structure where they can just focus entirely on creating this sense of a magical holiday, and we can be there to provide the extra support when it's needed. And I think these photographs do a really good job of illustrating what I've just been talking about. So you can see here some of that one-to-one in action. You can see the close relationships being formed. It's obviously a lot of fun for the holidaymakers, but it's equally as fun for the helpers. And there's just genuine friendships, genuine fun that is happening throughout the week. And yes, it wouldn't be right to do a presentation without showing you all the fancy dress that happens on the week. But yeah, it really is a holiday atmosphere for helpers, for all volunteers, as well as the holiday makers. And a lot of that does involve dressing up and having your face painted throughout the week. So I've highlighted this quote by a parent who was on whose child was on the holiday last year. And so this is a parent commenting on the quality of care that the helpers have shown their child. So I just think that's really nice to see that it's reflected in the parent feedback, that their care, support and love for their child was incredible. And we see this type of feedback year on year, but it is just really lovely to receive that. Okay, so I want to touch slightly on the impact that the holidays have for volunteers too. So for the majority of our young volunteers, they've never probably come into contact with somebody who has a learning disability. They might not have come into contact with somebody who has a disability more generally. And so obviously it can feel quite overwhelming, but what we see is that they're really it's a huge benefit for these young people volunteers to gain an understanding of a range of disabilities. They gain an appreciation of what it's like to be in a caring role, an appreciation of just how others might experience the world differently to them. And they develop loads of skills professionally and personally. So we see them start the week feeling a bit daunted by the prospect, as you might imagine. But they really develop in terms of their communication, their teamwork, their patience, being able to empathize with others. And by the end of the week, they've really gained confidence to the point where they can tell us as senior team what they've found works really well with a particular child, because they've been in such a tight relationship on the week. So their problem solving skills, being creative and trying different things in different situations. And yeah, by the end of the week, it isn't uncommon to see the helpers saying goodbye to their holiday makers and being quite upset with that, because the bonds have just been so close. So yeah, obviously Super Troop's primary goal is to provide young people, holiday makers, with a week away from home, and for their parents and carers to get a week of respite. But I think a really nice secondary impact that we're seeing more and more now that the charity is more established is that it's having this profound impact on our young volunteers as well. So this emphasizes it again. So this is a quote from a helper last year. They're emphasizing that they've learned new skills to be more understanding, more empathetic, to be more patient, and that these are skills that they think will stick with them throughout the rest of their life. And for some people, volunteering with Super Troop can actually influence their career paths. So I wanted to shine a bit of a spotlight on Rosie. Rosie first volunteered with Super Troop in 2018, which was the first ever holiday. And you can see Rosie on that holiday in the top photograph. Rosie had originally applied to study Spanish and history at university, did Super Troop, and then I think came back in 2019 to try Super Troop again, and was sort of reflecting on that choice. Is that what I want to go and study at university? And then I think had a bit of time outside to do some traveling and try some other caring roles, and kept coming back to the experience that she'd had with Super Troop, and went on to actually change what she wanted to do at university, and went on to study adult and children's nursing instead. And is now has now completed her degree and is now fully qualified, working at Great Ormond Street. And you can see Rosie, an up-to-date photo of Rosie at the bottom there. And I just think that it's so nice to see the impact that, 1 week, 2 weeks with a charity like this can have for pupils who are at a really important point in their life when they're making big decisions about what they're going to do. And something like Super Troop can maybe open your eyes and think about the types of skills that you think you might want to use in the future. I've shared a link to Rosie's story. So Rosie did a really nice blog post about this. And so when I send the slides around, feel free to have a read of that. Yeah, and that's just a quote from Rosie reflecting on how influential the experience with Super Troop was. And I should say that Rosie is volunteering with us still today. She's on the senior team, and obviously with her background and expertise contributes really, really valuable skills to the team. Another lesson that I wanted to emphasize was how great it is to have long-term volunteers on the team. So to give you a sense of this, around 60% of last year's helpers have applied to return to the holiday this year. The beauty of having some consistency there is that, over half of our helpers who will join us this year on holiday will be well versed in what Super Troop is all about. So they know all about the routines, all about the timetable. They've worked with a lot of the kids who will come on the holiday. And so they're providing that consistency and that familiarity that Hannah spoke about. And it also means that they're there to share their knowledge and skills with the 40% who will be brand new to Super Troop this year. All of our group leaders have also previously been helpers at some point, and that just means, it's just great because it means that they can put themselves in the shoes of the helpers. They know exactly the worries, the concerns that they might be having. They've all worked with the holiday makers themselves, so they're well trained in what good, excellent care looks like, and they can share that knowledge throughout their group. So I think it's a really great position to be in that we've retained volunteers over a number of years and now have built up this knowledge, skills and expertise for caring for the young people who come away with us. And I'll just touch briefly on my own personal connection to Super Troop, and there's other people on the call who will share their motivations for volunteering when we get to the panel session. I joined Super Troop in 2018, so that was the first ever holiday, and I joined as a group leader. I was at the time doing a master's, so my background's in psychology, but I was doing a master's in developmental psychology, and it had a really strong research focus. So I was really keen to find some way to still get some hands-on experience and develop my clinical skills at the same time. So I applied to Super Troop, and I would say I was definitely excited for the holiday, like looking forward to it, but I really had no idea the impact that it was going to have. And I definitely didn't think that I'd, still be with the organization 6 or 7 years later. But I think I remember finishing that first holiday, and you really feel, you've had some challenging times on the week, but you've got through it as a team. It's incredibly rewarding to be seeing sort of instantaneous impact on the week. And then you come out of the Super Troop bubble. And I remember just thinking, well, what do I do now? Because I'm never going to have such a good week ever again. And I remember being on the train home and just being in tears the whole way. And we now refer to this as the Super Troop Blues, but it definitely does hit you. And yeah, so there was no doubt in my mind that I wanted to continue volunteering, and I came back the next year, and I think I was a group leader for maybe 3 years, and then I moved into the senior team, and during that time I'd shifted into doing a PhD. The PhD was in a similar field, and sort of the Super Troop experience was helping me with some of my testing sessions, because I needed to always be adapting my communication. So it was really nice, actually, that the two were sort of helping each other. And then more recently, I'm one of the holiday coordinators, so I work really closely with Hannah, and we have oversight over all different aspects of the holiday. And yeah, in my day job now, I'm still in research. I work as a government researcher, so I work at the Department of Education, leading on a national study. So a lot of change in my career, but the constant thing has been Super Troop. And I think for me personally, it's a lot of work at times, but I think the thing that keeps me coming back is just how rewarding it is to be part of this team. I have a great team at work, but there's something special about the Super Troop team. There's something really special about all having the same mission and being really driven to make a difference on the week. And yeah, it really is the best group of people, and it's just part of my life now, and it very much enriches my life. So that's my experience with the organization. And yeah, we've got other people on the call who will share their motivations in a minute. But let me just share a bit more about the senior team. So what does the senior team do? You can see a photograph here of last year's senior team. I think this photograph was taken just after the kids left. So we're very smiley, but actually there's a fair bit of sleep deprivation behind those smiles. The senior team the senior team run the holiday, they organise the holiday, they provide the sort of leadership around it, they provide the planning of the activities. Our job is also to be role models, so to demonstrate excellent one-to-one care so that the helpers can see that every day. So our jobs vary from things like washing up paintbrushes, doing some laundry, helping with a particularly tricky situation. We do a bit of everything. And some members of the team have specific expertise in this field. So we've got people with medical backgrounds, we have people with speech and language training, very varied backgrounds. And I think, but not the crucial thing that I wanted to say is not everybody has that professional expertise or that previous experience, and it's definitely not essential. I think the beauty of this team is that we all have different backgrounds, different expertise, different life experience, and that having that on Super Troop is what is really valuable. But I think what I do see in all of us, if you wanted to be like, what is a good senior team member? I think we all share of the same values, which is kindness, we bring energy, team players, and striving to make a difference in small ways. And within the senior team, we do have people who have been with us since the very start, and that's obviously a real strength. It's a real strength for building that familiarity and consistency, passing down the knowledge to new members of the team. But with it being a volunteer team, obviously people step down, people move on to do different things. And every year we do have a few gaps. And that's really nice as well, because it allows us to bring in new members of the team who fresh perspectives, fresh ideas, and that's really good for moving forwards. I just wanted to share this quote, which I think really gets at the heart of what the senior team is as a family. So I really feel that I would agree with that completely. It feels very much, at home when we have our meetings and when we get together and do social things. It's definitely more of a community feel. And so here is what we get up to inside and outside of Super Troop. I'm sharing this because I just want to demonstrate that it's more than just volunteering. We are really good friends outside of the week as well. So we've done things like hiking trips for fundraising, Christmas meals. We try and get together as much as we can. We've done the odd sort of team bonding weekend away. And yeah, these are just great people to work with. So my reflections then on Super Troop being volunteer powered over the years. I think a volunteer team brings so much energy, dedication, and life experience. And the sort of layered model of different roles that we have on the holiday means that every volunteer hopefully takes on a manageable amount of responsibility and feels well supported by others around them. We are seeing through the feedback that volunteering with Super Troop has a huge impact professionally and personally. And having been running in this way for the last 6 or 7 years, we've really developed this sort of community or family feel, which is just really lovely to be a part of. And move on. So yeah, you'll recognize this slide from Hannah and Craig's section of the presentation on what is really important from our model. And I would just add one final box to this, which would be to say that what we've learned is that it's really important to invest in dedicated and skilled volunteers. It's a really important part of what we do. And in the last 5 minutes, I was just going to cover our current opportunities. So if you like what you've heard, if this sort of speaks to you and you feel inspired, I would encourage you to get involved. And we have some opportunities available right now. So in terms of the holiday itself, we have spaces available within the senior team. And this year we are specifically interested in boosting our male senior team members. And that's because we need to always keep in mind our gender balance so that we can provide the personal care needs of the young men who join us on the week. In terms of what we're looking for, hopefully I've given you a bit of a sense about what a senior team member does, but what I would say is you don't need to be an expert in this area. You just need to bring energy, want to make a bit of a difference, be kind and caring, and if that resonates with you, then we really would love to hear from you. In terms of location, I wanted to mention that you do not have to be based in Edinburgh to apply. So I'm not based in Edinburgh, and there's a few other members of the team who are spread geographically. But the key thing would be that you would need to be in Edinburgh on the dates of the holiday, and that's the 29th of June to the 6th of July. We have a few other training sessions, team meetings, but we always offer a virtual a remote option where we can, and that seems to work pretty well. But where you are keen to be involved in Edinburgh and that would require you some travel, we have funding to cover all of that. And obviously I'd be happy to talk about the details more over email. But yes, if any of this has touched you, I would just encourage you to get in touch. And if it's that you can't maybe get involved this year, but you're interested for the future, still drop us a line, because it might be that in a future year we can get in touch with you and get you involved. And finally, I recognise that not everybody will want to volunteer on the holiday or has the capacity to commit to that. but you might want to consider supporting Super Troop in other ways. And we have a few different means by which you can do that. So you could become a member. The good news is it's totally free to be a member. Members are people who want to support Super Troop's mission, and we want to build up a bit more of our membership. We want to hear from supportive and interested people across the community, not just people who have a learning disability background, but it's actually essential for us to try to hear from a range of people across different employments so that they can sort of provide us with more support on our wider charitable activities, as well as the quality of our care provision. There's also the option to join as a charity officer. So we have a growing team of officers, and they provide us with essential support in terms of managing our finances, fundraising, social media, and grant writing. So if you feel you have a valuable skill set and you want to give some time to a worthwhile cause, a charity officer role is a really great option. And finally, if you feel you've got expertise that would help us inform our governance or strategic direction around the charity, it would be great to hear from you, as you might want to consider applying to become a charity trustee. That's about it. If any of that does speak to you and you want to get involved, I've left the email address at the bottom of the screen there, and Anna, our people officer, will direct the emails to myself, Hannah, or whoever is best suited to answer your query. But that's it from me, and thank you for listening.